the past couple months, I've really been kind of in a deep theory crafting rabbit hole. So in this video, I wanted to kind of break the usual formula for videos I do on here and present a story theory video, predicting the sort of big twist for FF7 Remake Part 3. Now obviously there's going to be spoilers for everything FF7 related in this video, so please, you're warned. The first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to kind of back up. We're going to kind of need to explain the cosmology of the FF7 universe as established up until now in order to explain how my theory fits into it, because a lot of this theory gets into sort of like some metaphysical / spiritual kind of stuff, and that's kind of hard to visualize. As we learned in the original FF7, the life stream is the lifeblood of the planet, the spiritual energy that keeps the cycle of life going. Everything that is born from the planet dies and returns to the planet. Now fast forward to the compilation era and we get a little bit more understanding about how the life stream works, specifically from Lifestream Black and Lifestream White. In it, we learn that the ultimate fate of people who die and return to the life stream is that their individuality, their soul, will dissipate back into the collective at some point. However, this is obviously not the case. Not every single soul immediately upon death just disperses back into the life stream. Many souls still contain their individuality within the life stream for a select period of time. We also learned in the original game that the Cetra do have some ability to contact and talk to people that have passed, and to some extent talk to the planet itself. And with the release of FF7 Remake, we get a gigantic new bombshell about how the planet works. We learn that the Whispers are the arbiters of fate. They execute the planet's will and try to keep fate on course, assumedly the fate of the original FF7.
Perhaps best described as arbiters of fate. They are drawn to those who attempt to alter destiny's course and ensure they do not.
Like capital D? Destiny?
The flow of the great river that is the planet, from inception to oblivion.
And you're saying that that flow is somehow fixed?
Yes, for it is the will of the planet itself.
And then in Rebirth, we get a much deeper understandings of the inner workings of the life stream and the cycle of life and death itself. The first thing that we learn is that the life stream isn't just the spiritual energy of all of the souls that have or ever will exist on the planet, but it also contains knowledge and memories as well.
Materia is formed from the life stream itself. Orbs infused with knowledge, memories.
From the Gi, we also learn more about the cycle of life and death. That if one did not arise from the life stream, one therefore cannot return to it as well. Also within Cosmo Canyon, we hear this extremely interesting theory from this now extremely famous NPC about how, if the life stream contains all of these memories, is it not possible that it also contains hopes and dreams as well? Maybe the life stream can't even necessarily distinguish between any of these things. It's just a theory. And then at the very end of Rebirth, we start learning about these alternate worlds. The fact that Zack was in one of these the entire time, the fact that they even exist, the fact that they are ultimately doomed to fade, the fact that they ultimately branch in different ways based off of the decisions of the characters inside of them. And that's really all that we know of the cosmology of FF7 so far. There's definitely a lot of really interesting ideas and a lot of specificity to it. But the problem for me, at least right now, is that I feel like with all the world stuff, that is very particularly vague. Now, I know for a fact that a lot of people, upon the completion of FF7 Rebirth, were left a little bit confused. And they came away with this impression that they turned FF7 into a multiverse story? ? Multiversal stories prior to Rebirth's release had become such a huge part of popular culture, just due to a mix of many factors. A lot of it was just due to the appeal of being able to bring back older versions of characters, previous versions of characters with different actors and stuff and appeal to fan service in that way. It was another way to raise the stakes of a story beyond some sort of universal threat. And within the prior calendar year of Rebirth's release, there was both Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and The Flash, both tentpole comic book movies about the multiverse and its ultimate repercussions that both significantly flopped at the box office. And so when audiences have kind of been used to this sort of multiversal storytelling and kind of the mode that it operates, when they see this thing in FF7 Rebirth, they just are like, oh, it's that multiverse thing that I hate. Now here's the thing though, based on stuff from Rebirth and even a little bit from Remake, I don't think that there's actually any significant evidence that this is a sort of traditional multiverse story in the way that like a comic book movie does it.
Usually within a multiverse story, if the fact that the worlds are meaningfully different matters to the story, then there will be some obvious differentiator to make it extremely clear to the viewer that these are different realities that they need to keep track of for story purposes. Whether that be through the aesthetics of the world, different historical events that had preceded traveling to this alternate universe, alternate versions of existing characters that look significantly different so we can tell them apart. Now, at the very beginning of Rebirth, the game presents its multiple worlds as a sort of World A, World B format, with the main reality that the vast majority of the game takes place in, with Cloud and the party, and then Zack's world with the tear in the sky. But once you reach the end of Rebirth and learn about the rainbow branching, you're left with this impression that these various worlds ultimately just blend together, having no truly meaningful distinction from each other. And so this is my main belief why this is not a traditional multiverse story. These worlds are presented as different from the main reality as a collective. All that really matters is that they are worlds. The actual uniqueness of the characters and histories compared to the main reality is irrelevant. They functionally aren't any different.
I think the big reveal for part 3 is going to be that all of these worlds that we end up traveling to are actually just dreams within the life stream. For the life forms born of the planet, when you dream, your dream isn't just happening in your head. It is sort of creating a kind of pocket reality within the life stream that draws upon your memories and the planet's memories in order to create this sort of like fake reality. It feels real to the touch, but as soon as you wake up or as soon as you stop thinking about something, it dissipates back into the collective. I do have a few pieces of evidence for this. The first one being Errant literally saying that the world that they end up doing the dream day in chapter 13 is her dream.
Are we?
We could call it a homecoming. Or homeward bound, maybe? Let's just call it a dream. My dream, to be precise.
Cloud himself can also access these other worlds via dreaming.
Must have been some dream you were having, judging by the way your eyes were twitching.
Don't know if I'd call it a dream.
Either way, something happened to you, didn't it?
Yeah. Got sent to another world. Apparently, there's at least a few more than one.
Is that right?
But the final piece of evidence is actually a really specific detail in the Zack interlude that has really irked me ever since I learned about it.
When exactly did you meet Cloud?
The day before we hit Reactor 1. So, how long ago was that again? Weird. My internal clock's busted.
Yeah, mine too. What's that about anyway?
Good question.
I find that detail particularly interesting because I think one of the defining factors of dreams is the fact that you really can't keep any time while you're in a dream. There is no sense of time. If these other worlds were proper physically existent universes, then time would properly work for them. They could feel time pass and have an implicit understanding of how long things have been. This dream explanation also kind of covers one of my big problems with a lot of other people's theories around Rebirth, and that is like what exactly about the characters of like Marlene, Elmira, and Kyrie, characters who are clearly obviously not dead and are still in like the main Beagle reality and are clearly not dead characters like Zack or Biggs, or characters who can travel between worlds like Aerith and Cloud. If these worlds are dreams, these are not the characters' souls as we know them, but rather they are memory constructs created by the live stream in order to have this dream world exist. Okay, so that's how the worlds are normally supposed to work. But by the end of Remake, we end up beating the Arbiter of Fate, and as a result, the worlds have just completely gone out of control. What I think's been happening since the end of Remake is that these dreams no longer fizzle out of existence as quickly as they got brought into existence by people thinking of them. They're now becoming detached from their respective dreamers and just kind of floating out in the live stream until they eventually fizzle at some point. And the sign that a world has become detached from its dreamer is a tear in the sky. And sticking with the theme of dreams here, Cloud being able to see the tear in the sky at the end of Rebirth, it's not because he's stuck in between worlds in some sort of weird quantum physics kind of way. He is lucid dreaming. He's dreaming while he's awake. He is thinking of a world where Aerith is still alive, and he is getting it mixed up with the reality that's around him currently, and he doesn't necessarily recognize that fact. The problem with these errant worlds for the planet, though, is that they are catching these lost stray souls that have just passed in them, meaning that they really cannot move forward into the collective. That a lot of these people think that they are alive. And so you have these confused souls thinking that they're not dead, and they're sustaining and extending the life of these worlds as well. This ultimately explains the predicament of both Biggs and Zack in Rebirth. That they are both lost souls who don't even necessarily recognize that they are dead, that they just see themselves as having some freak second chance at life. So what about all those rainbow effects that we see throughout Rebirth? What exactly are those? I think those rainbows are visual signifiers of a new dream, a new world being born. We see this in the Forgotten Capital. Cloud is having dreams of him saving Aerith. But this rainbow effect doesn't just apply to living characters, it also applies to the dead characters that are stuck within these worlds. That when Zack is having all these different options presented in front of him, and he creates all these different branches, he is trying to create possibilities about what can happen, and he is reshaping the reality to try to accomplish his own goals and dreams. But ultimately, he comes to a dead end. He comes to the same fate that he met when he died.
I also think that this dream theory circumvents a large fear for a certain part of the player base going into part 3, which is something I like to call the multiverse problem. This term I'm kind of using to refer to the sort of watering down of any sort of narrative stakes by bringing a traditional multiverse into a story. If there are infinite other versions of these characters out there in the multiverse, then an individual character's death ultimately means nothing, when you can just go and grab a near identical one from somewhere else. However, if these worlds are ultimately dreams, then you cannot just pluck any individual characters and bring them back into the main reality. There really has to be a choice between living in one of these dream worlds or living in the main reality. And I think this trade-off could provide a very interesting narrative beat that could use the multiverse in a much more nuanced way that would further the story's themes and develop the characters. Cloud, after learning that Aerith is truly dead, could be presented with a choice. Whether to live in one of these worlds with a dream Aerith, absolving his pain from losing her, but ignoring what needs to be done on the surface world in order to accomplish his own selfish dream. Or having to go back to the main reality to become the hero to protect everyone else's hopes and dreams, but having to deal with that pain from loss of not having Aerith there with him.
I'll see you off.
Now where this really starts to get interesting is Sephiroth. Sephiroth wants to create a world of forever. And I think you could logically possibly extend that to where he wants to create a world without death itself. And these worlds provide a very easy solution for Sephiroth's problem. The problem for Sephiroth is that since he is part Genova, he properly can't really integrate or interact with a lot of the life stream systems, including the ability to dream. Therefore, he cannot create a world for himself to challenge the planet's will. This idea of Sephiroth not being able to dream is also brought up in Crisis Core as well. And so since Sephiroth cannot create his own dream, what he ultimately needed was power in order to control the life stream to create a dream for him. How exactly did he do that? By having us defeat the Arbiter of Fate at the end of Remake, allowing for him to absorb some of the power of the Whispers into himself. And so Sephiroth is going to use those Whispers to combine all of the worlds together into one really powerful world that he can use to challenge the planet's will. And so that means that the reunion of worlds is not some vague multiversal merger. It is the destruction of everybody's hopes and dreams in order to create a new eternity that Sephiroth will rule over.
Their words, they don't reach him. All these moments and memories, precious and fleeting, they're like rain rolling off his back. And when they're gone, he won't cry or shout or anything.
And so part of the reason why that Sephiroth is restarting the Shinra Wutai War is specifically because he needs people to die and join all of these collective worlds. That he needs enough people to make this world powerful enough in order to challenge the planet's will. And so you can kind of naturally see how Meteor would fit into Sephiroth's plan based on this, right? That it's an ultimate kind of lose-lose for the planet. If the planet spends too much of its energy fighting off the Meteor and not enough on fighting back Sephiroth, then Sephiroth can just overpower the planet as a result, since it's being drained of lifestream. But if the planet is too focused on fighting off Sephiroth and not enough on Meteor, then Meteor can hit into the planet, kill tons and tons of people, add to Sephiroth's world, and then overpower the planet and become supreme ruler of the planet either way. Okay, so after explaining this entire theory, the obvious question becomes, why even do this? Why add this element to the story in the first place? And kind of my primary reasoning is that this idea, I think, would tie together a lot of the new themes and elements from across the Remake games into a cohesive whole. Why introduce the idea of destiny and the idea of breaking fate at the end of FF7 Remake? Well, because Sephiroth wants to break the fate that bounds all of us, at least here in the real world: death, mortality. Sephiroth views these things as obstacles, as causing suffering and pain, and he views himself as the only one who is willing to stop this horrid system. Why all this focus on alternate worlds in Rebirth? Well, because Sephiroth has his own dreams of destroying the cycle of life and death. But in doing so, he is destroying the hopes and dreams of everybody else. I also think that a lot of these new themes can also tie back into a lot of the original themes from FF7 about dealing with death, grieving, and dealing with loss in general. That having hopes and dreams are good, but we shouldn't let them blind us from the reality that is happening around us. That we shouldn't let our hopes and dreams get in the way of properly grieving somebody that we had lost, or not being able to properly understand that these people are now no longer with us. And ultimately, the embrace of the cycle of life and death is one's own ability to be able to move forward in their own life and not just be able to deal with the loss of somebody else in their own life, but deal with their own death. So anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Did you like this video and the theory I talked about? Hit like. Comment down below. Tell me what you think about my theory, any interesting observations that you made that maybe I had missed or something. Hit up my Patreon down in the description. Give me some of that cash money. Incentivize me to make better videos. Anyways, guys, that's it. And have a good day.